Hello once again, and welcome to Uncle Jimmy's Train Station and Travel Adventure. And this is Uncle Jimmy, and today we're on another great adventure. My son's friend Tucker got the great idea that we go to Farnsworth House and do the Cellar tour here in Gettysburg tonight. Now, the Farnsworth House is the 5th most haunted bed and breakfast in America. I used to work here and do history tours, and I've seen plenty of paranormal stuff. Since the Battle of Gettysburg was fought here on July 1st through the 3rd of 1863 in July, and there are a lot of spirits and paranormal activity that happens in the basement of the Farnsworth House. We might catch something tonight, we might not, who knows. But my son and his friend Tucker and me and my daughter Eppie and her friend Bentley are going to go check it out. I've done it before. I've had experiences in the cellar. I've seen shadow figure of Walter. I've heard the death rasp of a soldier's last breath. Just weird things happen down there. So follow us on this adventure, and ask if you're watching this, please subscribe to my channel. Please give this video a thumbs up. Feel free to leave comments, suggestions as always. So we'll meet you there at the Farnsworth House for the cellar tour. It's an hour long, and I'll show you a little bit of the house before you go in and the bullet holes, and we'll get our tickets. So follow us on this adventure. So we're outside the Farnsworth House here. Don't know if they're going to let us film inside. Some tour guides do, some don't. But I just wanted to show you. It's the 5th most haunted bed and breakfast in America. There are 16 spirits that reside here. I used to work here, like I said. I've experienced a lot of things. This is the cellar that we'll be going down into for the tour. Most active part of the building. I've got guests with me here. I've got my daughter Eppie and her friend. Introduce yourself.
Bentley.
And they do drama together at school. And introduce yourself.
Tucker.
This is Tucker, my son's friend. My son was going to come with us, but I think he don't like this kind of stuff, so he stayed home. So I'm taking the kids, and we're going to go down in about 20 minutes. Like I said, I'm not sure if they're going to let us film. I'm going to try filming anyway, unless the guy tells me to shut my camera off. I'm not even going to ask. I'm just going to film. I want to show you the side of the house. Give you a little history of this house. This house was in the midst of the battle on the 1st and 2nd day of 1863 in July. You can see the bullet holes above that window there, and I'm going to show you more on the side of the house. This was occupied by the 44th Georgia, which were Confederate soldiers. They used the attic as a sharpshooter's den. It's believed that the shot that killed Jenny Wade came from this attic window on the side of the house. The Jenny Wade house is just up past the 1863 in there, where you can see up there, but a lot of these buildings weren't there at the time. And that bullet killed the only civilian that died in the Battle of Gettysburg, which was Jenny Wade. She was 20 years old. A bullet passed through 2 doors into her back and into her heart, and she died instantly. That shot came from this window at the top there. They were shooting out of the sharpshooter's den at the top in the attic. I'm going to take you aside here and show you actual damage from the battle here. These are all real bullet holes from the Civil War, and they painted them white so you can see them better, but it goes all the way up the side of the bricks here, clear the top to the bottom. These are all bullet holes. Some of them's actually got bullets still stuck in the sides, but they painted them so you can see them better. And like I said, this is the 5th most haunted bed and breakfast in America. So a lot of carpenter bees flying around here, but they don't hurt you. But actual history you can touch. The damage from the battle. So every one of these white spots on the wall is bullet holes from the Civil War. Hey, Epi, look at the side. How many bullet holes. They paint them white so you can see them. But we're going in down in there in about 20 minutes. Hopefully we get to film this for you. I'm not sure. So follow us on this adventure. I wanted to get my friend on the film here, Dave Hancock. He was my best man at my wedding, and we'd go back a long ways here in Gettysburg. We used to work here and do tours together.
13 years.
Oh my God, yeah.
You came out in 2012.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
I'm glad I got to run into him. Surprised him.
The chances.
Yeah.
Not a handshake.
Yeah, not a handshake. I kind of stuck my selfie stick down on his leg.
You know,
surprised him.
The other leg.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, we could go way back. A good friend of mine. So we're getting ready to go on the tour here soon. We got to check in, and they gave us permission to film. So follow us on this adventure. To show you their seance room. They do different kind of little storytellings and stuff in here. That's pretty cool. The wounded soldier there, hospital scene. I think this is one of their tours. They talk about surgeries and stuff during the Civil War. I might have to take this tour sometime and share it with you. So follow us on this adventure.
Looking where we are, you look at the Farnsworth house, the Garlack house. A little further up there on the hill is the you have the Schreiber house. Over here, the building with the green and yellow trim, that was here. This was the Weinbrenner house. It looks pretty much now as it did back then. The McCreary house, that you probably heard about, was there. The Welty house, about a quarter of the way up the road. Up a little further was a white house. That was the Welty house. That's now gone too. Behind the 1863 inn is the McClelland house. That is now the Jenny Wade house because that's where Jenny Wade was when she was killed. Across the way here, you have the Conoco gas station was a hotel called the Wagon Hotel. It was a hotel for travelers and for businessmen. Across on the other side, further down there is the George's house. That's that place. It's a photo studio now where they take old-time photos. It's a low rock building. And yes, it is the George's house. And I can't imagine any parents being so dim-witted to name their child George's. You must have been kind of lacking there. Coming back this way, you have the yellow house about middle ways down. That was the John Rupp house. It has been rebuilt. It was so dilapidated after the battle, he was forced to rebuild. You can't see the original house, but parts of it are exposed, but you have to look really hard to see them. Now, you'll notice, Sleepy Hollow ghost stories. We have absolutely nothing to do with Tawnytown, Tarrytown, the Hudson Valley, the legend of Sleepy Hollow. But folks, honestly, look where we are. Before the Battle of Gettysburg, this was a sleepy, we're in a hollow. This is Cemetery Hill. This was a sleepy little hollow until 1920. South Street was called Sleepy Hollow Lane. So folks, you had very little activity down here back before the Civil War, and we're back to that now. Now we're going to start moving down here, and I want you to take a look at the south-facing wall of the Farnsworth house. Let's move down that way. Okay, everybody, I want you to take a look at the south-facing wall of Farnsworth House. If you look at there, you will count. There are 178 mini ball strikes there. And if you look way up there at the top, there's the attic garret. That window is about the size of a school notebook. Behind that window, during the Battle of Gettysburg, were 3 Confederate sharpshooters. That was their sniper's nest. From up there, they launched the shot that traveled a quarter of a mile down the road, penetrated a solid outer wooden door this thick, an inner solid wooden door this thick, before striking Jenny Wade, the only civilian casualty of the Battle of Gettysburg, in the back, and killing her instantly. Now you'll notice there are some bricks missing. The reason for that is because there were shells. Let's make way for these folks, please. That's because there were shells and they had to be taken out. Otherwise, they would have blown huge holes in the wall. Okay, follow me, folks.
Tulips, they're so pretty.
Man, you make your checks out to later. Any inheritance you want to leave me, what have you. I encourage you to ask questions, take photographs. If there's something you need to know, just let me know, and I will do my best to try to answer your question, and if I can, I'll make something up. Now, I want you to take a look here at the Farnsworth house in the cellar here. And yes, there is water on the floor. There's good reason for that. But first, folks, the Farnsworth house was started, the building was started in 1810. Originally, it was a wooden structure. By 1816, it was brick clad as you see it now. And of course, you know, you start with your cellar when you build. And take a look at these magnificent rock walls, folks. 2.5 foot thick native rock wall. This is the finished part of the cellar. Back here is what we call the catacombs. Behind here, there are the electrical breakers for the Farnsworth house and the great big hot water heater. Let me dispel a myth. These steps were not here when the house was built. These were put in 1973 to bring in that equipment to turn it into a bed and breakfast. Before that, it was a private home. The lady who lived here in that private home is this beautiful young lady here. There's flowers in your face, sweetheart. This is Sarah Black. Sarah Gideon Black lived here from the late 1890s until 1973 when she passed away. Now, folks, the only way you could access this cellar back in the 1800s, around the time of the Battle of Gettysburg, were these narrow steps here. You can take a look at those a little later. Over here, folks, you can take a look a little later as well and see that this house has something very interesting. There's a well or cistern back here. It connects to Weinbrenner Run. That's why there's water on the floor, because whenever we have a heavy, hard rain, it tends to belch and overflow. Now, that's unique back in the 1800s, because otherwise you would have had to go out the back of the house, over here to what's known as Weinbrenner Run, and dip your buckets or your ewers for drinking out of that water. So in the winter, the owner of the house only had to come down here, throw a bucket down there, bring up some nice fresh water. Now, the owner of the house at the time of the Battle of Gettysburg was that gentleman right there, Harvey B. Sweeney. He was living here. He was renting rooms out in the house here because this lovely lady, Mrs. Sweeney, this is her right here. She's a lovely lady. That's Mrs. Sweeney. Isn't she beautiful? She was Miss America, 1890. I mean, she's 31 in this photograph. Times were much harder back then, you know. No, I'm joking. But a lovely lady Mrs. Sweeney was. Mrs. Sweeney had done something very brave. As Mr. Sweeney got older, he got more cantankerous. And all it took was maybe striking her or one of the children. She did something that a woman would not do. back in those days. She picked up, took the children, left, and moved into her own house down on East Middle Street. And that's where she was going to stay until Mr. Sweeney passed away. Now, during the Battle of Gettysburg, you had Mr. Sweeney living here. You had some residents that lived here in the rooms where his wife and children used to occupy. And it so happens that Mr. Sweeney knows that something is going to go down. There's been Confederate cavalry here in town and about the countryside. There's rumors of a larger force west of town here. Mr. Sweeney is preparing to wait out the battle if that happens. So he has a water source. He brings down some items, some food items, some dried goods, and he's ready for whatever may happen. Doesn't have to wait long. July 1st, 1863, Mr. Sweeney is doing whatever, puttering in his garden, and he hears the commotion. That's the beginning of the battle just west of here. Doesn't take long before he sees Union soldiers running through the streets. They're looking for high ground and protection. That's over here, East Cemetery Hill. That's where they're heading. And they're being chased by Confederate soldiers who are screaming at the top of their lungs, the rebel yell. And that's just terrifying these men and driving them through the town. Well, Mr. Sweeney starts pulling his residents down here into the cellar. He sees a couple, the Weikerts, as they're trying to make it to their house down on Cemetery Hill. He says, "You'll never make it, get in here." They all flee down in here in the cellar. Mr. Sweeney starts nailing boards at the top of the steps there. And everyone's going to be down here for the next 3 days. Now, Mr. Sweeney's a curmudgeon. He also doesn't want to waste candle wax, so most of the folks down here are huddled in the dark cellar for 3 days. Imagine being down here in the dark. The emotions are running high because you're listening to the sounds out in the street. BAM! That's my first guy. But imagine that, folks, but so even louder outside. You hear horses clattering, and then the horses suddenly stop. How bad is the Battle of Gettysburg? 60,000 casualties in 3 days. That's more than 15 years of the Vietnam War. How bloody is it? General John B. Gordon, who is a veteran commander, says, "I have seen battles before. I survived the bloodiest day, which was Antietam. But I never saw anything like Gettysburg. The blood ran in riverlets in the streets. It puddled. It stood. I stood on the battlefield and could not walk 1,000 yards in any direction without stepping on a human body. 14,000 horses. We don't think of the animals that are killed, hauling limbers, carrying their officers. George Armstrong Custer, who was here at the Battle of Gettysburg, had 100 horses shot out from under him in 3 days. So, folks, emotions are high. And have you ever seen the big mortar balls like that? Can you imagine your terror? Because you don't know if one of those is going to strike the roof and come down here and explode. And if that did, anyone down here would have been, you would have to scrape them off the wall like raspberry jam. So you're terrified. Those emotions are still locked here in these thick walls. Now back here, as I said, it's the catacombs. They weren't untouched by the war either. So you have the human emotions in here. Now, the Confederate Army is storming the houses looking for a safe place to shoot from. When they hit the Farnsworth house, they break open the front door and call out, "Are there any civilians?" And Mr. Sweeney calls out, "I'm Harvey B. Sweeney. This is my home. Get the hell out of here." Well, they're not going to.
First, they're looking for a place to take advantage. So they look at the front windows, but it's at an oblique angle. It's not facing the Union Army. The soldiers would have had to sit on the sills, lean out, and fire their weapons. So they go all the way up. And they finally found that window on the top floor. That's window the size of a school notebook. Now for 3 days they were up there. From daybreak until sunset, they're up there and they're plying their trade as sharpshooters. And they are literally, folks, first of all, we don't take tours up in the attic in the summer because last year I went up there with the thermometer, 156 degrees. There is no ventilation, no air conditioning, as there was back in 1863. And imagine this, these 3 men were in woolen uniforms from dawn till dusk, and they're in this confined space. And how they are doing this is the one man will step up, fire his weapon, roll away to reload it. While he is reloading, the second man is doing the same thing. And they're doing this in rotation, hour after hour. The Union Army down there around the McClelland house, now the Jenny Wade house, know there are self. And this child is laying out here in the street, broken into pieces. One of Jeremy's little friends runs down to the tanner and grabs Willem. Mr. Willem, you have to knock them out. But they are not successful. Those men are up there until dusk. And of course, that's the day of chivalry war, chivalry, and manly, gentlemanly art of war. So, when it got dark, they retreated from the attic, probably the only relief they had from the heat. And they would relax here in Mr. Sweeney's parlor. It's recorded that they ate his food and drank his liquor. And of course, the next morning, they're back up there firing all day. That's the only relief they get is at night, and it gets quiet at night. Mr. Sweeney doesn't know whether to come up or not. He hears footsteps, he hears talking. He even sometimes hears them singing up there. I guess while they were drinking, they wanted to sing a little. So there they are. And then finally, the third day comes and the battle is over. By 4 p.m., Pickett's charge has been fought and the battle has been lost. And Robert E. Lee is trying to retreat out of Gettysburg and get back into northern Maryland. Now, for some reason, we don't know why, those 3 Confederate sharpshooters are still up there in that attic. And it doesn't take long. I mentioned how many houses, not many houses are down here. It's still sun out until almost 9:30 at night. So it doesn't take long for the Union soldiers to reach the Farnsworth house. It is in shambles after the 3 days of fighting. They enter the house. The door is hanging off its hinges. They call out, "Are there any civilians here?" And again, Mr. Sweeney. "I'm Harvey V. Sweeney. This is my house. And if you're rebels, get out. We're the United States Army. I'm Major Chamberlain." No relation to the Colonel Chamberlain. Major Chamberlain and his men go through the entire house. When they reach that attic, there are those 3 Confederate sharpshooters. Now, whether it was their drinking at night or they were overcome from the heat of the battle, they were there, semi-conscious. Imagine you're suddenly brought to your feet and clapped awake, smacked awake, to find yourself at the end of bayonets and your enemy behind those bayonets and guns. And then you're suddenly marched downstairs into the parlor with your hands above the air. Mr. Sweeney and his occupants are told to come up out of the cellar and to go outside. They then bring those 3 Confederate sharpshooters down here into the cellar, march them along here and up to where the hearth used to be. And they tell the men to stand and turn. They turn. The officer in command, Major Chamberlain, removes his pistol and fires into the head of each man. And folks, if you look, you'll see the mini balls that went through those men when they were executed. One of them even still has the piece of lead mini ball in there. One of the men, it must have not immediately killed him because he whispered a name as he died, Walter. Walter. They left those 3 men stacked here like cordwood and left. Now, no sooner is Mr. Sweeney told he can come back into his house when another officer, a young lieutenant, rides up and says, whose house is this? Well, it's mine. Well, we're going to turn this into a field hospital. We're going to use your first floor as a field hospital. Because, folks, all those wounded soldiers who are coming in off the battlefield, they're told, they'll come in and say, where's the nearest field hospital? Well, folks, the nearest field hospital is way up Baltimore Street, past the apex of the hill, a half a mile away. That's the Cavalry Field Hospital. That's the nearest field hospital. And imagine limping in here with multiple wounds and being told that's how far you have to go. A lot of men just laid down here in the sleepy little hollow and prepared themselves for death. Well, no, they were going to try to stop those men from dying. So they sent 2 surgeons down here. And above your head, folks, in what is now a 4-star restaurant, the surgeons plied their trade, which was amputation, amputation after amputation. And if you look here, folks, right above your young folks' head, it's kind of hard to see. You'll see the stains before you leave. Those are the blood stains that remain, that drip, because the blood had to go somewhere. Because these are not tongue and groove floors, these are just the old-fashioned wooden plank floors that ran down here. So they worked up there. Each soldier brought in, put on a table, 15 to 18 minutes for each surgery, because that's how long chloroform gave you, and then taken out the back to lay until they could be taken to a field hospital. Now, folks, I'm going to start with those 3 Confederates up there. Over my years here at the Farnsworth house, I have not seen them, but I have heard them. I've got a really great story for you that occurred the winter before the last. Now, in the winter, the Farnsworth house closes down. The restaurant is closed except on special occasions. The bed and breakfast is closed down. And most of the rest of our businesses, the antique store, the bookshop, they close. 2 years ago, my boss asked me, our manager said, Doc, I have a Civil War group from York, Pennsylvania coming to do a round table. Can you host it up in the attic? And I am up in that attic with 20 people all sitting there, and we are having an earnest discussion about the Battle of Gettysburg. And in the middle of that, I heard the latch on the attic door click. Now, I hushed everybody and I said, did you hear that? Knowing that I'm the only employee here in the building with the only key to let them in and to let them exit and lock out. There is no one alive left in this building except myself and that group. And in view, full view of those 20 people. Now that attic door has an old-fashioned gate latch. You put your thumb on the treadle, the gate latch goes up, it's wrought iron. You let it go, it drops down. It's been there since before the Battle of Gettysburg. It's still up there, it still works. That latch lifted on its own, and my right hand to God, that attic door swung in, and standing there was absolutely no one. It was an empty hallway. I had one or two men stand up, and I looked towards the door and said, is there anything that I can do for you? When something like that happens, that's my normal response. If something that I believe is paranormal, I'll talk to it. That's the best thing to do. It was a beat of 1, 2, 3, and that door swung in again. The latch raised and closed on its own. I had those men who stood up get and walk over to the door and walk up and down the stairs and come back to see that there was no one else playing a joke here. They were just incredibly bemused by it. And for the rest of that Civil War roundtable, we dropped the Battle of Gettysburg and started discussing things that happened here in the Farnsworth house. I was peppered with questions. What have you experienced? What have you seen? Does this happen all the time? That's the kind of thing that happens, folks. I'd like to introduce you to one of the youngest resident spirits of the Farnsworth house. That's Jeremy there. Jeremy, every now and then when I start talking about him, he'll flicker the light. So he is often down here. Now that's a very good portrait of Jeremy, sadly. That's the best and only one we have of him. Jeremy's story's pretty sad. First of all, he had a strike against him on the day he was born. His mother died within an hour of his birth of something called puerperal fever or childbirth fever. It was probably from the doctor not washing his hands during the delivery. Well, his mother died from those complications, and it was just Jeremy and his father, Willem. Willem, his father, works for John Rupp, the tanners. That's the yellow house I mentioned earlier. He works for him. He's a tanner by trade. And every morning at sunrise, Willem and Jeremy in the summer get up. They come down here to this part of town. Jeremy plays with his friends here. In the winter, of course, he's in school, and in the fall, but in the spring and summer, he's down here so he's close to his father. Jeremy plays with his friends, and of course at lunchtime, Willem and Jeremy go home and eat, and then they come back to spend the rest of the day, and then they come home at night together. Well, Jeremy's out here playing tag with his little buddies, and they're having a good time. Jeremy gets a little carried away, runs out into the street, and it's just like a driver today. He can't stop. The wagoneer who's plying the wagon can't stop in time, and he runs over Jeremy. First the horse, and then the wagon wheels it. Where is my son? The crowd parks, and there's Jeremy laying in a puddle of blood out here in the street. He runs over and grabs his son and says, somebody, for God's sakes, get a doctor. Somebody help me. Help me. Well, by this time, Mr. Sweeney has passed away, and Mrs. Sweeney is living back here in her house. She lives here with her daughter, her son-in-law, and her 2 young grandchildren. Now, the young grandchildren have a wet nurse. They have a nanny who cares for them named Mary. And Mary sees him in distress and says, bring the child into the house, take him up to the 2nd floor to the nursery, and put him in one of the beds there. So they put Jeremy in the bed there. They sent for the doctor. Dr. O'Neill comes. He hustles down here. He goes upstairs. He examines Jeremy, and he says, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do for him. You'd best call for a priest. They call for Father McNamara, who comes from the Catholic Church, from the rectory up here on West Middle Street. He comes down here, delivers the last rites. Now all this time, Willem is sitting next to the bed that his broken child is laying in, and he is holding on to him. He's holding to his hand. He's holding some part of his body, his shoulder, and he's talking to him. You're going to be all right, son. You're going to be fine. You can't go away. You can't leave me. And he's sitting in this little rocking chair, you know, the old-fashioned Victorian rocking chairs. They're about that big. They're not the grand cone backs that we have today. And he's sitting there on the edge of the bed. He is there until almost 10 o'clock at night. Now, Mrs. Sweeney is a good woman. She's also a good grandmother. Her grandchildren should be in their own beds. Jeremy is gone, and she approaches Willem and she says, "It's time to let us do what we need to do. Let us do what's right for the child." No, he's going to be okay. Do not blaspheme. The boy is gone. The last rites have been said. It's time to let go. I can't. Go to sleep. We'll put you in one of the guest rooms. Go and sleep. No. Let us do for the boy what needs to be done. She insists that he take that chair and drag it into the room that is now called the Jeremy room over here in the house. She just doesn't want this for Jeremy. She wants to get her own grandchildren into bed so that Mary can go and change the sheets, put fresh ones on, because her grandchildren are sleeping in the parlor on chairs. After this is done, after Willem is in the next room, she can hear the rocking chair rocking and him crying, sobbing, until eventually the sobs become snores. He drifts off. Mrs. Sweeney and her daughter and Mary pick up the child from the bed, carry Jeremy down the steps through the house, in through the dining room and into the kitchen, and lay him out there on the kitchen table. Mrs. Sweeney sends her daughter to the house to find clothes to bury him in. They want to put the best clothes that the boy has. She goes to the house. Folks, take a look at that photograph of Jeremy. Those are the clothes that he had that he was buried in. And folks, even further, this is pretty sad. That is a post-mortem photograph that was taken for Willem so that he would have some sort of memento. The eyes, you'll notice the mouth is slack. That's because the muscles in the face relax when you die. They painted over the eyes to make them look like they're open. And of course, with the body here, Mrs. Sweeney and her daughter and Mary wash Jeremy's body. They wash the blood off. Any wounds that are still seeping, they bind. They dress him in those clothes. They order a coffin, and the next day in the evening when the coffin is delivered, he's put in the coffin, and the body is going to lay here for the next 2 days. At the end of those 2 days, after the funeral mass, Jeremy is conveyed to Evergreen Cemetery, where his mother is already buried, and they dig down to right where the top of her coffin is, and they put Jeremy on top. In Victorian symbolism, he's in his mother's arms now. The story isn't over, folks. Willem, after the allotted time of mourning, goes back to work at the tannery, but he's not the same man. Doesn't have the same life. He's got no one left. Willem takes to drink. Doesn't take long for him to lose his job. He's now an itinerant worker, taking whatever jobs he can in town. And over the next winter, it's no surprise to anyone that Willem dies over on West Street, found in an alley, died of exposure. Well, I mentioned what a good woman Mrs. Sweeney was, knowing him his whole life. She claims his body, otherwise he would go into the pauper's field. She claims the body, and pays for his funeral. He's laying up there in Evergreen Cemetery along his wife and son. But Jeremy and his father haven't quite left the house. And we have hundreds of people who will attest to hearing a child giggle and laugh here in the house in the middle of the night. I myself have heard Jeremy laugh. Nurses or teachers, any nurses or teachers here? He loves nurses and teachers especially. He's known to reach out and touch them. I had one lady that we sat right where you are, hon, had long brown hair, and for 15 minutes we watched something take the lady's hair and pull it straight up like that. That was a crowd of 17 people that night, and she said, "I'm not afraid. It feels strange, but I'm not afraid." I'm like, "He's not going to hurt you." No. I had someone last summer stay in the Sarah Black room, which is where Jeremy died. He set up a night vision camera. He went down. He heard that Jeremy likes toys. He decided to buy little tin soldiers from the toy soldier place down here on Town Pike. He set them up on the dresser in the room and the night vision camera. And folks, he came in the next morning, came over to where I'm and said, "Doc, you've got to see this." And he showed me the footage, and we watched as the bayonets and barrels of the gun, one by one, turned over like that, as if some little child had bent them all one by one. One of the little figures shuffled over and fell off the side. That was, for me, absolutely incredible. Now Willem, he's still in the house here. For years, the legend of the Farnsworth house, if you've ever heard it, was that people in the middle of the night would wake up and they would leave after seeing something that terrified them. They would go and check into the hotel that used to be the Holiday Inn, it's now the 1863, and send someone the next day to pick up their luggage and bring it to them. Well, I can tell you what that's all about. In that room, the Sarah Black room, for over 100 years, was that little rocking chair. Imagine you're a guest in this very beautiful, very fine bed and breakfast, and you wake up in the middle of the night and there is a man sitting in the rocking chair, rocking and crying. You're terrified. You can hear him sobbing in the dark, but then you turn the light on and there's no one there, just an empty rocking chair. Folks, we had so many complaints that the owner, Mr. Schultz, who has turned 93 this year, he purchased the house in 1973. He got so many complaints about that little rocking chair that he moved it. He moved it up into the attic, where it is today. This past winter, I had a group up there, just like we are. I'm telling the stories in the attic. When two young women screamed, stand up and hit their head on the low beams. And these two young women, in their 20s, were terrified and they're pointing. And they're going, "It's moving, it's moving." And they're pointing at that little rocking chair. And folks, that rocking chair wasn't moving, but it was creaking and groaning and shuddering and vibrating like that. And we were just astonished. It's wow. But folks, that chair, Mr. Schultz holds a grudge. He has the chair bolted to the attic floor. So if you happen to be up there in the winter and taking one of our spring tours, you may actually get to see that chair try to rock on its own, but it won't. Now over the years, folks, I've run into the spirit of Sarah Black. I've actually heard her rather than see her. Whenever I've been in here doing something for the owner, I've gone to move some. There's huge chalkware statues up here that are the pride and joy of Mr. Schultz. And there's times I've had to move them from one place to the other for whatever reason. And there's times I've picked one up and I've suddenly heard a woman's voice say, "Sweetie, don't do that." Or, "Sweetie, be careful." That's Mrs. Black. She's one of the few people that I knew back in the day, and she's the only person I think in this house who would call me Sweetie. It would not be appropriate for Mrs. Sweeney to call me Sweetie, but since I did know, we used to come over here. My aunt and uncle used to live across the street back in the day, and back in the 60s we'd come over here and we'd have Sunday dinner with Sarah Black. She's a lovely lady. Folks, I'm going to tell you a couple of scary things that have happened to me that were fairly scary. Now, over the years we've had psychics, we've had ghost paranormal explorers, adventurers, what have you, come in, walk all through the Farnsworth house. And one of the scary things was what's back here in the catacombs. Now, folks, we know that this was used as a field hospital, but it was also used, the back part of the house was used as an impromptu morgue. And they brought, where the old cellar door used to be in the back, the storm cellar door, they started bringing in bodies and laying them down. And of course there's so many that they lay them and then stack them. And of course the more you bring in, you just start throwing them in at this point. Well, when they started to remove those bodies for burial in the new cemetery, in the new National Cemetery, when they got to that bottom tier, they found something absolutely horrifying, something out of an Edgar Allan Poe tale. They found a soldier who had been knocked unconscious but not dead. And he was laying there like this, with his eyes open and his mouth gaped open and his hands. He was so weak, he must have been bleeding out. He couldn't push the soldiers. And of course that crushing weight of the other men and being trapped. Can you imagine waking up with all these dead bodies on top of you? That's a horrible way to die. Now, folks, in my duties here at the Farnsworth House, I've been required to come back here to flip breakers on trick breakers. I've had to come down here for different reasons over the years. And one of the reasons that I used to hate going back there or dread was because whenever I would go back there, something would shove me roughly if I was a little too long in what I was doing. Just that. And as I've gotten older, I've got arthritis in my shoulders. It's no surprise. Last year, at the end of the season, I was back there resetting a breaker, and it shoved me very hard. And I turned and I said, "Will you stop doing that? I am sick and tired of it. Now, by God, if I die, I will come back here to the other, believe you me." And folks, it has stopped since then. Well, we've had, as I said, psychics, famous people. One of the people who came and visited the Farnsworth house was a lady by the name of Lorraine Warren. She's the one that the Conjuring movies, the Annabelle movies, the Nun movies. She came and went through the entire place. She's the one who told us we have 16 spirits here. I can't vouch for 16 spirits. I can only tell you what I've seen and what I've heard. And she went all through the Farnsworth house, talked to Jeremy, talked to Mrs. Black, talked to Mr. Sweeney, though he didn't want to say very much to anyone. I think he got that out. The way Mr. Sweeney died was someone had hitched a horse up to his hitching post, and he was out there screaming at it, basically, who pitched a horse here? Who? And had a bout of apoplexy, that's a stroke, and dropped dead. So, yeah, he was one of the original get off my yard people. So. Well, she talked to them. She talked to Susie, who I've experienced Susie. If you're in the Farnsworth house alone and you hear what sounds like a sniffling or snuffling or a cough, that's Susie. She died of what was upper respiratory problems. So when Lorraine Martin comes down here, she walks in to the catacombs and turns around and walks out and says, it's something back there. It's evil. It's malevolent. It's demonic. She liked to use the word demonic a lot, though a lot of things aren't. I can assure you folks that whatever's back there is not demonic. It's angry, it's pissed off that it's dead, and in the cellar of the Farnsworth house. If there's any place anyone would rather be, take a look around you folks. It's not a lot of activity down here so far as, and he doesn't want to be there. That's why he is angry and he shoves people. Well, if he was demonic, I wouldn't be down here with you folks. She said, I'm going to try to protect your guides though. So she asks for a bowl, some white paint, and some table salt. She brought with her holy water. She mixed them all together, and she came down here and she prayed and drew this symbol on the door as a protection spell. Now, just a few years ago, we went over to these pews that you're sitting on. We used to have green chairs, plastic chairs down here. They were found to be far less comfortable. So Mr. Schultz bought these beautiful pews from different places. You'll see they're all different shapes and sizes, wherever you could find them, and put them down here. 3 years ago, my boss, Wendy Kadori Schultz, you recognize both names, Kadori family, Kadori Farm, Schultz family farm out here on Steinweir. So you have the Schultz family, the Kadori family. She says to me one day, Doc, I'm in a bind. I got a seniors group from Littlestown, Pennsylvania coming in, and I need someone to do morning theater. That's where we talk about the mourning and the death rituals of people in the Victorian era. It's an easy thing. I come in here. Oh, how you doing, sweetie? Okay, good. So I come in here. She wants me in here 12 noon on a Sunday morning for when their little bus shows up. I get here at 11. We're required to be here an hour ahead of time. I'm turning the lights on down here.
Well, folks, we're home. Sorry the way the video ended, but my camera got drained. It was weird. A couple of the kids' phones died too. I had 100%, and it went down to like 10%. The camera kept shutting off. Camera got hot. If you see anything in the video that I didn't, please leave comments in the on the video and tell me what you see, and I'll look for it. Don't know if we got any paranormal activity or not, but we'll see, and we'll see how it goes. So once again, if you're watching this, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Give it a thumbs up. Feel free to leave comments, suggestions. I hope you enjoyed this blog, and this has been Uncle Jimmy with Jimmy's Train Station Travel Adventures. Till next time, goodbye.